So, because we talk way too much, do you want to finish our story about when a crazy man threw some of his lads into a smelter?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, let's do
We
it.
definitely need to get back into it.
Yeah, it sounds good. We kind of left everyone hanging.
Yeah.
That was our bad. I'll cut that out and show music.
I love it.
Okay. Oh, welcome to the Bible is Metal. This has been, and I have Levi here with me as well.
Hello.
Hi guys, how's it going? Sorry for the
Dying from our intro still.
that was funny.
That was.
All right.
For those of you that didn't notice it, we kissed the mics.
I don't know why this is so funny. I think this is your mic too. I think we switched.
Did we?
Oops.
Oh, well.
Well, that's your pop filter.
Yeah.
So
But
it works. All right.
anyway.
Moving on. Moving on. We're done. We're normal. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
Okay. So,
Welcome back.
how was your week?
My week was really good. So, officially missed Knotfest.
I know. I'm a little sad about that.
Yeah, like that was out. And like I had a dentist appointment. Like I'm totally going to be lame and blame a dentist appointment for the reason I didn't go. And also like I had prior commitments. Like
I wasn't in the country.
Yeah, you weren't in the country.
I was. I mean, I'm gonna milk this for all it's worth, but like that Mexico trip was terrible.
Yeah.
It really was not good. I mean, not because Mexico is actually really pretty. I mean, I was also in a really dangerous area, so like I wasn't supposed to leave the hotel, and like it's one of the few Mexican states where the U.S. government is like, don't go there.
Yeah.
So lots of cartel violence and stuff. So it's like we weren't supposed to leave the hotel. I had to stay with my. We were recommended to stay with our host and whatever, or not our host. Like he wasn't really our guide. He was one of the guys who worked in the company with us, but he's from Mexico, so he kind of knows where to be. But the tacos were so good.
Oh, I bet.
Oh my gosh, dude, the food there was amazing because it's tacos.
Yeah.
Everyone loves tacos.
You can't beat tacos from their native taco land.
Right. Well, I mean, it was really funny. Like I think it was day 3 of the trip, and the guy with us, he's the service engineer at my job. And we're at the we were out in the plant working on this system because it was having a bunch of software glitches and stuff. So I was working on it until probably midnight, and it was so fun. It was like I've never seen someone that excited to get food. Like I mean, he's like my dad's age, so he's in his 50s, and but he's super super nice. I really like the guy. But he's just like nothing was open because it was like midnight and we're starving, and he's just going. It's like, oh, you want to go get some tacos? I'm like, yes, I want to go get some tacos.
Tacos.
And he's just sitting there like walking out to the car. And I can hear him under his breath. He's going, taco, 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 tacos. And then he found this taco place, and it was just, it was so good. Oh my gosh. Like the pork was perfect, and there was like cheese and these beautiful, like tasty sauces and stuff. It was actually technically a gringa because tacos you're not supposed to have with cheese in them. I don't care. They're delicious with cheese.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm half Mexican, half white. And so like there's the white side of my family that they enjoy tacos, but like definitely can't do tacos right.
Right.
And then there's the Mexican side, my dad's side of the family that does tacos amazingly.
Oh, I'm sure.
We do put cheese in tacos because we're fat Americans, but it's like, man, some of the tacos I've had in my lifetime as a kid, like being at quinceañeras and like weddings, from my dad's side of the family, like there's just no better place to get tacos from people that just know how to make them.
Know how to make tacos.
Yeah. And like to this day, I'm ashamed to say that I don't know how to make my own tortillas. My sister does though.
Oh, okay.
And she got like our granny's recipe. and everything. So like, and of course it utilizes lard, because that's how you make real tacos, is you use lard. Like that's how you get the good, like
the delicious oily
taste. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how you get the
good
real taste from tacos, is lard.
Well, we would do, like, he showed me tacos al pastor, which are like, you probably know what they are, but like the meat, it's like pork, and the meat's like red. I don't remember what they put on it.
Yeah.
That stuff is just, oh my God, it was so good. It was amazing. It was so tasty.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
So your week was awful, but it was met with kind tacos.
There was tacos, but that was last week. So
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah. What have you been jamming out to?
So, so from last time I talked about how I was jamming out to Wage War, and I basically am just waiting for them to release their actual album,
right?
Because they've just been releasing singles, and like it's fine that bands release singles, but man,
when they're good,
you know,
it gets you so ready.
Yeah, and so and even As I Lay Dying, I'm waiting for As I Lay Dying to come out with an actual album.
Well, they are. It's called Shaped by Fire. It'll be out in November sometime.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I feel like I'm in waiting for so many albums to come out.
Also, out of curiosity, there's a bit of a change of pace.
Yeah.
But so I know House of Blues came under fire for, and a lot of, Resurrection Fest dropped them from their label, or dropped them from their roster. There's a couple of other venues that canceled As I Lay Dying shows because a bunch of people were like, "Why are you booking As I Lay Dying? The dude's he's a freak. Like, he's horrible. He did this terrible, evil thing." And I mean, I know kind of like you, but then House of Blues refused to cancel the shows because they're like, if you don't like it, just don't come to the show.
Yeah.
Like,
simply put.
But a lot of people are like, well, now I'm not going to support House of Blues because clearly you support this. And I'm like, but that's an interesting talking point. It's like,
yeah,
because it's like, yeah, what Tim did was abhorrent, and awful,
and he knows that.
But the question of the day is, should that affect his ability to be able to go out and continue to play music?
Yeah, that is a good talking point. So my take on the matter is that I'm always an advocate for redemption.
Right.
I'm always the person that's like, I understand people can make mistakes, and like we all make mistakes. It's just the degree that we make mistakes.
I mean, he made a big mistake.
He made a big mistake.
We're coming right out of the gate and saying he done messed up.
He done messed up, bro.
He made a big mistake.
Yeah, and like he acknowledged that. Like you and I, we went to that show recently, and by the way, they're coming back out soon. We need to get tickets.
Well, it's As I Lay Dying, and who are they touring with? They're touring with a couple of bangers. No, Within the Ruins. No. They toured with. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up right now.
Okay, looking it up. Anyway, so
looking it up
as you're looking that up, yeah, like I believe in redemption in any situation. You know, like he went to prison, he served his term, and he came out from what can be perceived.
Oh, it's Unearth and Fit. No, that's the other one. After the Burial and Amir.
Okay.
After the Burial is pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't really like Amir. They're.
Yeah. They're
Amir. Like, well, they're let's put it this way. They've gone through 5 lineups because no one gets along with the lead singer.
Oh.
So
it's the lead singer's fault.
Yeah, he's a jerk. He's one of those people I was talking about last time where he's just a horrible person.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like as brutal and as metal people want to be in metal bands, you do need to have a sense of respect for the people that book you for shows.
Right. Exactly.
Like, yeah. But anyway, like what I was saying with Lambesis, like, you know, when we saw him at that concert, we definitely did not get the vibe that he was like, he was proud of what he did.
Not only that, but like he's gone out of his way and saying everything that I do from here on out, I'm using the As I Lay Dying name to end domestic abuse and domestic violence, which I think is like, I don't know if you can say I'm sorry harder than that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the big thing is I'm all for giving him an opportunity to make it right.
Yeah.
And I think
everyone should have
everyone should have an opportunity to make it right. So, but yeah, like, I don't know. Where was I going with that?
Yeah. So like,
oh yeah. No, I mean, everyone should have an opportunity to make it right. But at the same time, you know, if you come out and you do it and then you aren't changed, because you aren't trying to make it right. Like I think
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, maybe that's when you should be like, no, I'm not going to support this. But I mean, they've gone out of their way. They're donating huge portions. I think that first tour they did, they donated almost all of their profits from it, because the other guys run a studio and a music venue. So it's like, As I Lay Dying isn't their bread and butter anymore.
Yeah.
So like, but they donated most of the profits from that tour to domestic abuse, like ministries and non-profit organizations and stuff like that.
Yeah. So like, there's definitely a lot of redeemable quality in that. And this, I mean, this of course goes down into like the discussion of like the capital punishment discussion. Like, should certain individuals who perform certain crimes be, killed by the government or, by society pretty much. And of course, like, he wasn't successful in his action, but had he been successful, number one, he wouldn't be getting out of prison.
No,
because I think murder is premeditated murder or whatever is a life sentence.
It's like, I don't care if you're roided up and you're on roid rage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, you pay the consequences for what you did, and it's like the fact that he wasn't able to succeed changes things a little bit. But then you also have to accept the fact it's like he wanted to murder his wife, right? Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to downplay that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that there's like both sides of the fence. There are people that are like, oh, like, I totally am disowning him, and like, I don't want to do anything that even remotely supports his like existence in the music scene anymore. But at the same time, I feel like if that is the attitude, then like half of what metal music actually is would go out the window too.
Right.
Because we of course don't want to support the actions of like murderers, but at the same time, like, I feel like this situation might be a little different, and there's nuances to it that, like, especially redemptive nuances that need to be taken into consideration. Like, if he came out and he's like, oh yeah, I did it and I do it again, then absolutely. Like, I
would never support that.
I would never support that. I'd never go to As I Lay Dying show ever again, not even just for the remaining members.
Right.
But since that is not his attitude coming out, and you can see a genuine change, like, even like, what also speaks volumes to me is like, I watched that interview like after he got out and after he got with the band, and like the band like had this video talking basically about like what happened up to that point, the kind of interrelationships that was happening in the band, and I saw a bunch of bandmates that essentially hated him.
Yeah.
Like, this was aside from what he did. This was just his character, the way that he acted, the way that he treated them. They hated him. But for them to get to a place to believe that he is genuinely changed, to go from hating him to not hating him, that speaks volumes to me. That means he's different, and they can see it.
Right. And I mean, and they would know, right?
Yeah, they would know.
They literally spent 10 years in a van with this dude. Like, if anyone knows him well, it would be these guys, right?
Yes.
And that's part, is like, I trust them, but I trust them to tell us that it's like, yeah, Tim really is different. And I mean, it's, and he's not, and it's one thing when it's all just words, right? But then he's putting his money where his mouth is. He's using As I Lay Dying as a vessel for change, a vessel for good, positive change, which I think is amazing, right? Like, because a lot of people, they'd be in a situation like that where they come out and they say, oh, well, it's like, this sucks and I'm sorry, and then it's just words, right? But he's backing it up with his actions, right? Which I think is extremely commendable. And
and he wasn't even just trying to like, there are some people that will get out of that situation and try and justify what they did. Like, he totally could have just been like, it was the roid rage and like, I wasn't thinking straight. He could have gone that route,
which he mentioned a couple times, and it's like, if he's not using it as an excuse though. He's using it as an explanation, which is different in my opinion. He still is taking the fault and the blame for it, but he still is like, it's like, I was out of my mind. I'm sorry.
Like, in reality, roids can change your mental state.
They mess you up.
Like, it's a real thing.
As far as I know, he was like shooting up all the time. Like, he had all kinds of issues. I mean, he's not the only rock star that had drug issues, right? Like, that's pretty common, but his drug of choice unfortunately made him do some pretty horrific things. So with that, like, I definitely feel like there's redeemable quality there, and I want to support that, and anything that gives that kind of behavior a second chance, I'm all for. Right.
And anything aside from that, if he didn't have that kind of behavior, I would not support it.
Right. And I mean, I think it's really funny how much people have started to fall back into the Scarlet Letter mentality. Like, you do one thing wrong, you're barred for life, right? Like, it's like, oh, you need to pay the cost. And it's like, I want to sit down with someone, you know, and it's like, I honestly think someone's well within their rights if they don't want to support As I Lay Dying because of that.
Yeah.
That's their prerogative.
Yeah.
And I understand their reasoning behind it.
I'm not even going to say that they're wrong in doing so.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either. I mean, the reality is a lot of people can't get over the fact that they feel like they're supporting who he was, right? And that's understandable, right?
Yes.
But there's also there's a lot of truth to the fact that I'm choosing to look at it is I want to support who they're becoming and the things that they're doing now, you know,
who he's becoming,
and I want redemption. I want people to be able to look at that and see a redemption story.
Yeah,
and I want to support that. And also because it's like, you know, when I buy a concert ticket to an As I Lay Dying show or I buy an As I Lay Dying t-shirt or album, some of that money is going to help people. Yeah. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So
like the Jesus story is a redemption story. And so this story is very similar.
I've noticed they've been very careful to keep it very agnostic, their mission. And it's like, and I don't know where he stands spiritually. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I would bargain that, I mean, I know they at one point professed to be believers. I don't know.
Yeah,
if all of them still do.
I don't know where they're at either, and I don't.
But that's not the point.
That's
I
not
guess.
The point. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, I would love to be able to see him like proclaim Jesus using that platform, but at the same time, if he's doing it to help people, I'm not gonna fault that at all.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So now you know our take on the As I Lay Dying fiasco.
Yep.
We like it because the music is tasty, and I think he's doing good things. So
yeah,
cool. What else have you been listening to? Or do you want to kind of get started?
Yeah, let's kind of get started because this beginning part is already getting long, and we got a whole storyline to get through.
Oh yeah, we still got to actually get back to what we were originally talking about. Yay!
Yeah. So anyway, like this was a time period where Daniel and his three friends. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you know, they were in exile, and during this time, like they were kind of following the rule of the prophet Jeremiah, which basically said, you know, go into this land, serve them loyally, but you know, in essence, like do not turn away from your God. Like you still have a God that watches over you in the midst of this exile. You're not being left here. You know, God is still watching over you. Like the prophet Jeremiah promised that.
Right.
And so with that, these four guys are basically depending that the Lord is watching them and giving them favor as they're kind of going through this whole situation and this whole exile, you know, being underneath their, you know, Babylonian rulers.
Well, I mean, and that kind of goes back to the fact that's like, even though Israel refused to hold up their end of the bargain, God always said, this is the covenant I made with you. I will not break it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, there are elements where it's like, yeah, I'm going to let you face the earthly consequences of your actions type thing, but then there's also, it's like, you know, but I promised I would do this and I will continue to do this, right? Yeah. If you continue to come back, like, you know, or if you ever come back, you know, like, or if any individual, like Daniel was extremely devout and followed the Lord, and the Lord blessed him.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. And so now we are here in the setting where in true Nebuchadnezzar fashion, he builds a statue.
Yeah.
That's approximately 90 feet tall.
Yeah, and as far as I know, it's a statue of him.
Yes.
So
potentially, like most likely a statue of him because he's a narcissist. Yeah. So this
like
was
if you needed proof, here you go.
Yeah. So here we go. This is a statue of him, and the command in the beginning. You know what? Let's pull out the scriptures and start reading this.
Let us pull out the scriptures.
Okay.
So I just have their response copied and pasted, but.
Yeah, there we go.
I should have had the whole story.
All right, so this is picking up in Daniel chapter 3. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to assemble the satraps, the prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the province to attend the dedication of the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the province assembled for the dedication of the statue the king had set up. They stood before the statue Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Man, that is a lot of redundancy in just those 3 verses.
I'm pretty sure if we actually looked at like the original writing, it would not be that way.
Probably.
Or it would make more sense the way it was structured.
I unfortunately don't read Hebrew.
I know, I don't either.
I want to, though.
I feel like that'd be a really useful. I mean, it depends on how you define useful. It would be a cool skill, being like a nice Christian party trick.
Yeah, but you definitely like,
and you'd also get more out of the scripture. So
you would also want to use it somehow.
You know.
Anyway, Verse 4. A herald loudly proclaimed, "People of every nation and language, you are commanded, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, you are to fall face down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. But whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire." Like, automatically, it's like, if you don't do this, you're going into the furnace, bro.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So therefore, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and every kind of music, people of every nation and language fell down and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And so now we come to our three boys in the story on how they were essentially thrown under the bus. Some Chaldeans took his occasion to come forward and maliciously accuse the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. You, as king, have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music must fall down and worship the gold statue. However, whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire." Like, right? "There are some Jews you have appointed to manage the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men have ignored you, the king. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." Then the furious rage Nebuchadnezzar gave orders to bring in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar asked them, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you don't serve my gods or worship the gold statue I have set up? Now, if you already, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music," man, that's hard to read, "fall down and worship the statue I made. But if you don't worship it, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. And who is the God you can rescue? And who is the God who can rescue you from my power?" So automatically calling into question, like, what God can defeat me? You know, Nebuchadnezzar thinking he's a god.
Yeah.
Like, who's going to rescue you out of my hand? Basically.
Right. Exactly.
And that it's cute that he says that.
It's adorable.
It is adorable. Nebuchadnezzar's so adorable.
He's so cute.
He thinks he's so strong.
The way he murders all those people.
What is that meme? I'm feeling cute today, doing such and such a
IDK.
thing. Like,
IDK, feeling cute today, might go throw some Jews in a smelter later.
Yeah, pretty
Wow.
much. Anyway, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if he does not rescue us, we want you, as king, to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up." So basically, you can go screw yourself, bro.
Yeah. I love how they say it's like, look, God's going to spare us. Like, we have full faith that God will spare us. But if he doesn't,
Screw you.
yeah, it's like, we don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, there's nothing you can do that'll matter more eternally than turning our back on God, right?
Like, take that 90 feet, 9 feet wide gold statue and shove it up your bum.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Pretty much.
I love their response. Just the more I think about it, the happier it makes me.
Right?
There's this dude who's like, "I will literally burn you alive if you don't do this," and they're kind of like, "Eh." They're literally just kind of like, "Whatever, man."
Whatevs, bro.
They're like, "That's cute."
Feeling cute today. Gonna defy the king.
Gonna go defy the king. Might get burned to death later.
Might get burned to
IDK.
IDK. Love it. All right, verse 19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage. Oh, there he goes being cute again.
Yeah.
And the expression of his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In other words, he was pissed.
I think. Well, that I guess that goes into question. Was he actually like asking them? It's like, "Hey, can you guys do this? I don't want to have to throw you in the fire." Like,
I'm pretty sure it was
because he probably knew them. I would say I don't know how well he would know them. Like that's the thing, but he knew who they were.
Yeah, well, he also knew who Daniel was because Daniel at the time was the chief prefect.
Right.
So
and Daniel interpreted his dreams and stuff.
Yeah, that was in chapter 2.
Yeah.
And so Daniel's right there, right next to his side, watching this whole thing happen.
Oh yeah, so Daniel would have been there watching.
Yeah, he would have been there.
Which explains why it's so detailed, because if he wrote it down, it's like, yeah, I was there. I watched this happen.
Yeah.
So,
like Daniel was standing there when this happened. Okay, so then he was filled with rage. His face changed. He probably his brows probably turned cute or whatever. He gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times more than was customary. In other words, that's the It's a way of saying just, heat it up more than normal.
And do you want to do you want to talk about what the smelter is?
Yes, I do.
I mean, it is a smelter. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, after we... here, let me finish reading.
Finish the story, yeah.
And he commanded some of the best soldiers of his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So these men in their trousers, robes, head coverings, and other clothes were tied up and thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. Since the king's command was so urgent and the furnace extremely hot, the raging flames killed those men who carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up. Oh my gosh!
Like, I'm just trying to imagine this picture.
Best of the army,
the strongest men of the army, and the fire coming out of the furnace is so hot, it burned them to death just getting close to it.
Yeah, wonderful. That's so brutal.
That's pretty metal, man.
And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell, bound into the furnace of blazing fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in alarm. He said to his advisors, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire?" "Yes, of course, your majesty," they replied to the king. He examined. "Look, I see 4 men not tied, walking around in the fire unharmed." They're skipping and hopping around and whatnot. Mm-hmm. "And the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the door of the furnace of blazing fire and called, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. When the satraps, prefects, governors, and the king's advisors gathered around, they saw the fire had no effect on the bodies of these men. Not a hair on their heads was singed, their robes were unaffected, and there was no smell of fire on them. Nebuchadnezzar exclaimed, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him. They violated the king's command and rescued their lives there rather than serve or worship any god except their own." Oh, yeah. So, let's talk about that furnace.
Yeah.
So, so Ben kind of spoiled it. This is essentially a smelter, and this is like immediately I think of Skyrim and the smelter that's in Skyrim.
Right. That's actually probably a pretty good.
Yeah.
So, because you have like with the smelter, in order to get the flame hot enough to melt metal, you'd have one opening in the top to let all the smoke out, and then you'd have another opening in the bottom where they would shovel in the like coal and steel and stuff, and then usually there'd be another opening there to get some oxygen underneath it, and then it would just come up, and you could blow oxygen underneath the iron, and then it would catch, and then the hot air would rise, which would draw more oxygen underneath it. So these things could get
extremely hot.
Like, I think the melting point of steel is like, I should know this because I'm a mechanical engineer. It's high. It's in the thousands of degrees. So
like metal melting points, like in general, that's the smelter.
Yeah. I think the melting point's actually like 800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my gosh.
But the fire would get much hotter than that.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially since, he said 7 times, much hotter than normal.
We're talking, it's I don't know if it was actually 7 times hotter. No. I think it was just kind of like...
It was an expression
of like, get this as hot as it'll go.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I'm so pissed at these dudes.
It would have been several thousand degrees.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just like we're talking, if you throw someone in there, it probably would have... not just burned them alive, but incinerated them instantly. Like, extremely, your body would, all the water in your body would instantly boil. Your skin would burn to a crisp within seconds. Like, it just, So it was.
Hence why the gentlemen who were trying to put them in the fire got burnt up and died right away.
And it would have thrown them in the top of the furnace. So
This is a big smelter.
You would have had fire and extremely hot air coming out of the top.
Yeah. And the way this thing was set up, it was more than just your average smelter like what you would find in Skyrim, a video game. This smelter was actually purposeful for 2 things. Heating up metal and materials to make, weapons, or even as a kiln to heat up bricks for buildings and structures. It was also used as a execution device. Like,
Nebuchadnezzar was nutty.
He was nutty. he was a crazy individual.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that.
So this is not the first time this has happened. Nope. I guarantee you many people had met their fate.
Yes. Many people. The coals of the bones of the dead are in that schmelter.
Yeah.
Man, there should be a metal song about that.
Well, I mean, that could be the title of the episode.
Wonderful.
Dancing among the coals of the dead.
The coals of the dead. Brutal. So anyway, with that kind of a structure, it would require some kind of stairway to get up to the top part of the schmelter, because I mean, normally you wouldn't have any use to go to the top of a normal schmelter that was just used for heating up materials.
Right.
But in this kind of a schmelter, it's like, okay, we need a stairway to the top so we could drop people in. Like, that's just the way it was.
Yep.
So
sounds about right.
Yeah. So the soldiers take Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up to the top part, and they're bound. Like, they're in their normal clothes. They're bound in, like, leather straps or whatever. And I could just picture them approaching the hole of this pit, and there's flames coming out of it. Like, it's not just smoke coming out. There's flames that are coming out of it because of how hot it is. And as the soldiers are trying to push them to the hole, it just, they can't get close enough without killing themselves. But if they don't follow the king's command, they're going to die anyway.
They'll get thrown in, probably.
Yeah, they'll get thrown in.
By someone else.
Yeah. In other words, it's as if King Nebuchadnezzar said, go sacrifice yourselves in obedience to me in this command.
Right.
Like, they pretty much... Which is retarded on his part, because... like, they're the best of his soldiers.
Well, that's the thing, is like, okay, it's another thing that they make comments about is how earlier in the book they talk about how Daniel and his mates were like the smartest, most intelligent, most capable rulers he had.
Yeah.
Like, these 4 men were extremely highly regarded in the government, but that just shows you how irrational this guy is. Like, he'll throw away the best of his resources if someone tells him no. He's a bit of a spoiled child, and that we can get to that in another episode.
Yeah,
but
we will have an episode dedicated to the spoiled child that is Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, because he deserves his own episode. So anyway, you have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that fell into this thing. Okay, the scripture says specifically they fell in. So that gives us
the guys are probably dead.
Huh?
The guys are probably dead behind him already.
Oh yeah, they're already dead, and I imagine they tried to like push them into the hole from a distance, but it just didn't matter because it was so hot. And so, they end up falling in, and like Ben said, they would have been dead in seconds. Like, as they're falling in, they probably would have died.
Yeah.
Like this, I mean, as they were approaching it, they could have died because of how hot it was, And so imagine the picture of them falling into this fiery furnace, fires coming out. And you would think job's done. Okay, we're done. But Nebuchadnezzar, in true Nebuchadnezzar fashion, looks inside because he likes to see the burning bodies of his victims. That crazy man.
Yeah, he's special.
He's special. And so he's looking inside, and he realizes, oh, did we throw 4 in? And this dude's like, no, we threw 3 in. I'm pretty sure about that.
Dude, you were there. Like,
yeah. Weren't you there?
We threw in 3. Like, you watched it happen. Like,
yeah.
Literally 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. And he looks in and he sees 4 individuals walking around. It says, I love how it says walking around boundless. Like, they're just taking a stroll around this thing, which again, probably gives credence to the idea that this was a big schmelter. They could walk around in this thing. It wasn't a cramped space. And they're walking around, probably shocked at what's happening because they imagined that they would have met a very quick demise.
Right.
But here they are, boundless. Let's be honest, they probably hurt their face falling in because they fell in bound. Like, so I imagine they hurt a little bit.
Right.
But they are not in the ultimate hurt that they should be in.
Yeah, they should be honestly, with it that hot, Nebuchadnezzar isn't thinking straight, because if he actually wants to cause the most pain to his victims, he wouldn't make it that hot.
Yeah.
Because if it was not that hot, they would die slower.
Yeah.
He's a weird dude.
Yeah. I would imagine, like, when I imagine like death by heat or death by fire, I imagine the
burning at the stake or something.
No, it was a Roman torture device. It was the bowl.
Oh,
it was the iron bowl, or the copper bowl or whatever.
Yeah, they fill it with oil and then they just slowly cook you alive.
They throw you in there and they cook you alive. And it's definitely not a quick death.
No.
It's a slow, gruesome, painful death.
Yeah.
And at some point when all the water in your body is steaming, that's when the nostrils of the bull steam up. That's how they know basically that you're dead. Mm-hmm. Like the nostrils of the bull steam up. I picture that as being a more efficient torture device.
Right.
This was more of like quick execution. Like, let's just get him killed.
Yeah.
Which interestingly enough, like, surprises me for a man like Nebuchadnezzar. You'd think he'd want to do some kind of torture.
Right.
But again, he's not thinking straight. Anyway.
That just kind of describes Nebuchadnezzar in a nutshell.
Yeah.
He wasn't thinking straight.
Yeah. He didn't have too many nuts in his nutshell.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how many he stole from the people.
How many he stole from the eunuchs? he's got a sack of nuts. Sacks.
That is probably the grossest thing anyone said.
But it's Nebuchadnezzar.
But it's Nebuchadnezzar. He probably has a sack of sacks.
I couldn't put it past the guy.
No.
Anyway,
all right.
He sees 4 figures inside the fire. And in his words, he says that the 4th figure looked like the son of the gods, like a son of the gods, which probably means this 4th figure was shiny of some sorts. He was bright in appearance. Just, again, when in those days when they say, oh, he's an angel or a figure of the gods, they usually think bright and shiny,
Right.
And then later on,
people aren't shiny.
Yeah, people aren't shiny. We're gross and oily. And I'm sorry, you just got all the head oils on your hand now.
It's shiny.
Yeah.
Levi's shiny.
Ben just rubbed my head in sheer creepy fashion. And it's hot down here too, as normal.
As normal, yeah. Because it's been like 100 degrees in Salt Lake for
Why don't we have a
2 weeks
here?
now.
We should get like a fan.
I can have my wife sit down here. She can be our fan. She'll be our biggest fan.
That was cute.
No, for real though. I actually do. I have a fan that I'm going to zip tie. I have a pipe like up here that leads to like the outside.
Okay.
That is supposed to be an exhaust, but I'm going to zip tie it like a ceiling, or one of those little like 8-inch like stand fans to it.
Okay.
Then turn it on so it'll blow all the air out.
That'd be wonderful.
Keep air moving through here. So
I mean, it's a metal experience being down here, and I think it helps our content a little.
And also sonically, like, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, like you would hear a fan in the background if you had a fan. So
yeah. Anyway, keep moving on.
Anyway,
we're almost done. Sorry.
Yeah, almost
this
done.
It's been a long one, but
yeah, it is. Anyway, so yeah, he sees this 4th figure and he says, it looks like the son of the gods. And then later on, he says, the God sent his angel to rescue you. And so there's actually 2 interesting points to be made about this 4th figure. There's 2 theories, and I'm not entirely sure which theory I ascribe to. But theory number 1 is that this is what's called a Christophany. This is a pre-incarnate Jesus coming to rescue Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Like, Christ is not yet incarnate. He has not yet been placed in a body through, the virgin birth with Mary. He is a pre-incarnate Christ that comes, in like a spirit form, if I could put it that way. Mm-hmm. That's like what a Christophany is. That's theory number 1, which I'm not entirely sure about.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah. Theory, actually 3 theories. Theory number 2 is that this is Gabriel the Archangel, because Gabriel...
Why specifically him?
Well, because Gabriel is specifically brought up in the book of Daniel in chapter 9.
Oh.
When Daniel receives the visions of chapter 7 and 8, he's in distress over the visions, and he's calling out to God, and he's trying to get God to answer him about these visions, and the Archangel Gabriel comes on the scene and says, yo, I'm here to answer your questions because Michael is busy over there, like, fighting the nations and all that stuff, essentially the spiritual warfare that we don't see. And so Gabriel comes along, and that gives credence to the theory.
So Daniel and Gabriel are chums at this point.
Are what?
Our chums.
Our chums.
They're like, oh, hey, man.
Hey, what's up?
Been a bit.
Sodded.
Sorry, this isn't a furnace. It's a little cooler than you're used to, but...
Yeah, so theory number 2 is that this is Gabriel the Archangel. Theory number 3, which I think is probably more likely, is that this was just, like what could be classified as the angel of the Lord, God sending, an actual angel to rescue the 3 men from the fire. Like, that is not uncommon. So many times in the Old Testament, God sends like specific messengers, specific angels to do things. And so I'd say this is probably, just an angel. But again, there's different theories, different interpretations, and, people can debate on that. But either way, that's what the text says. So either way, I think the important fart. The important part is God was faithful in rescuing these men. It says they came out, they were unsinged.
Sorry, I can't stop laughing.
It says their clothes were not affected.
Coffee.
They didn't smell like smoke. Their hair was not singed, like the hair on their head, the hair on their face, the hair on their bodies, not singed. I mean, quite a miracle. This is, by all accounts, a miracle.
Right. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. You can't speak scientifically around this. This was a miracle.
Right.
And again, we believe this to be a historical narrative. This actually happened in history, and so we actually believe God showed up in this point in history and performed a miracle.
Right.
That these three men, who were actual real figures, were rescued from a firing furnace that in common times people just died in all the time. Like, this was just another occurrence of execution, and yet God showed up specifically for these Israelite men to rescue them from the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. And so another great story of God's faithfulness to his people. Like, even though his people turned from him, as Ben said in the beginning, they turn from him, they leave his side, they go and worship and follow after other gods. God is faithful to keep his promises.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Which is really, even in spite of that, because I like the wording of the covenant is follow my commandments and I will protect you. Right. They didn't follow his commandments pretty much at all.
Yeah.
And God still was like, he didn't give up on them, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah. God's grace and faithfulness surpasses so many.
I mean, it's
faults.
like obviously he's like, there are times where I think that there's actually a lot of legitimate truth to when we basically tell God, it's like, hey, we don't want you here. He'll be like, okay. God in his infinite wisdom, we say, God, we don't want you. And then when bad things happen and we say, where are you, God?
Yeah.
It's like, well...
And like, how common is that for even just us today?
Right.
To just be like, I don't want God. I don't want to believe in God. I don't want God in my life. And yet when things get bad, we question where he's at.
Right. And it's like God being polite. We asked him to leave and he did.
Yeah.
I mean, and that might be a little like a bit of an overstatement. Like, I don't want it to be like, I think God works. And that's the big thing is like, this could be a whole episode in and of itself, but how God works, for the good of his people. Yeah. Like, and not, I don't see God working direct. I don't think God works in the same way that he did then.
Okay.
Like as much, like, cause I mean, you don't see stories of this happening, I guess, you know, of someone, you know, someone facing injustice and, you know, God, I mean, sometimes God does, deliver people, but I don't know. Like, I wish I had a better answer than.
Yeah, I think probably what you're trying to say is like there are specific reasons why these stories exist and why they are considered God's word, because they, as examples, show God's faithfulness in that point in history,
right?
Even if that is not the norm of how God acts,
right?
In every situation.
And I don't think, I think a lot of people can get that, can kind of look at that and go, oh, this used to happen all the time. And I'm like, I really don't think it did.
No, I'd agree.
Like, I mean, if you look at it, they're probably, especially in the New Testament and Acts and stuff like that, you know, people like shortly after the Christian church started, like I would say the modern Christian church.
Yeah.
Shortly after that started, persecution happened almost immediately.
Yep.
Like thousands and thousands of them were murdered. They were tortured. They were, you know, abused. And then
that'll be a whole nother episode on
that'll be a whole other episode, like the persecution of the Christian church.
There's so much to talk about.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk
Christian
about.
history is metal.
Right, Christian, but it's like these miracles that people see, you know, 400 years in slavery in Egypt kind of thing, where it's like, you know, like we kind of get our timeline kind of screwed up. I mean, for us, imagine the best way I can think of it is like, it would be like the story of this happening, you know, in like 1850. So like nowadays. It's like the time between you see stories like this, and then usually several hundred years will have passed between these portions.
Yeah.
And we kind of look at the Bible and say, oh, God used to do this and this and this, and there were all these, and like, honestly, there really weren't. Like, there would be entire generations of people that lived and died and never saw God work in that way. So I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. I wish I could give a better answer. It's like, why does God do that sometimes? I'm like, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
And to respond to what you were saying, like, you're absolutely right. I feel like the Bible and all the stories that we read are like specific instances in history where God did something amazing, or God wanted this particular instance recorded in his word for a reason. Like what Paul says in the New Testament, like these things were written for our example. Like they were specifically placed there to show us the character of God as he works in history. And that necessarily means that there were probably 360 days out of the year that weren't recorded in these events. Like these are specific time periods or specific like points in history. So that means there's a lot of point of time where these things weren't happening, and like we got to try to surmise like what's commonplace and what does God do ordinarily, or is this an abnormal, miraculous situation? And so despite Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego getting rescued from this fire, that does not necessarily mean that every single Israelite from then on was rescued from the fire.
Yeah.
Like this was a specific example. I'd argue to say there were probably many that were thrown in the fire after that
And died. Yeah.
Like it's not that God will show up every time. And like they even said, we have faith that God can rescue us, but if he doesn't, we still won't worship your God.
Right.
Like, and that is just utter faith right there.
Right. And I mean, and not only that, but it's like, they know that even if they die, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, we can kind of go into it's like what happens after you die. I mean, the big point of I think the church kind of glosses over is what we're supposed to do while we're here. But that isn't, that adds a lot of truth to the fact. It's like, it's like God will take us to be with him.
Yeah. I would love for us to eventually do an episode on like heaven.
Yeah, for sure.
The understanding of heaven from Old to New Testament.
Right, exactly. No, we totally should.
As well as hell.
As well as hell.
That'd be good.
Because there's so many camps now with what hell is, because it just depends on, I mean, it's so, at least to my knowledge, the only mention of hell is in like Revelation. Then there's like a couple instances in the New Testament where God mentions like, or when Paul mentions like, something else. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we'll get into it.
That's going to be a whole nother episode, and it's a lot more complicated than that.
It's a lot more complicated than that. Yeah. So, but yeah, like, I mean, you just have these guys who have this faith where it's like, God could bodily deliver us, but he probably won't, and we're okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the reality is the expectation of Shadrach. The problem is I watch too much VeggieTales, so I want to call them Shadrach and Benny.
Wait, what?
Have you not? Did you grow up on
No,
VeggieTales?
I have seen them. I just forgot. What were their names?
Shadrach and Benny.
Shadrach and Benny. Oh my gosh.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But they're like, that's too hard to say, so we're just going to call them Shadrach and Benny. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So many titles I can give this
right,
episode.
But it's like, I think that there was a lot of truth to the fact that it's like they did not expect God to save them.
Yeah.
I mean, they said, we have faith that he can, but he probably won't, and we're okay with that.
Yep.
Because all he'd be doing, like, because our death in the grand scheme of things really doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Them having the maturity to look death in the face and say,
yeah,
God's bigger.
And given up until this point in the storyline, Daniel has not yet been thrown in the lion's den.
No.
That is in chapter 6.
Yeah, it's later.
And so,
well, Daniel was old. He was pretty old.
Well, yeah. When that happened,
so this would have been
that was like after
decades later.
That was after the Persians or Assyrians.
That was Persians.
Was it the Persians?
It was Assyrians. Babylonians took over the Assyrians, and the Persians took over the Babylonians. And the Persians were in power until the Greeks.
That's right. It was the Persians.
The Persian Empire lasted for a very long time.
Yeah. So that was that was right before the time, or was that after? Anyway.
No. Whatever. So anyway, point being. Nebuchadnezzar was only the second king of the Sorry, I want to go off on this for
Go for it.
Nebuchadnezzar was the second Babylonian king, but then the 5 kings after him were only about 10 years.
Yeah.
So one of them only ruled for less than a year, kind of thing. So it rapidly disintegrated, and the Persians came and took over within Daniel's lifetime. So just to give you a basic idea, Nebuchadnezzar was the second Persian king or second Babylonian king, but his empire fell apart within Daniel's lifetime. Yeah. So by the time Darius came around, the first king of the king of the Persian Empire, or the Persian emperor, whatever.
I always think of VeggieTales. King Darius.
King Darius. By the time he came into power, Daniel was still alive. So he probably would have been, he probably would have been 80 or 90.
Yeah, he was old.
He would have been extremely old.
He was.
But yeah.
But like my point there is that this was like the first real occurrence of like a miraculous thing in their lifetime. I mean, aside from chapter 2, when Daniel receives like word from the Lord of the vision in order to interpret Nebuchadnezzar's vision.
Well, he did that a lot.
Yeah.
So,
that was kind of normal.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of harkens back to, what is it? Genesis when Joseph was doing the same for Pharaoh.
Yeah, so that wasn't uncommon.
God worked through dreams a lot.
Yes.
And I think he still kind of does in a way.
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. But with that being said, that means that this occurrence with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was like it's the first of its kind in their lifetime of them needing to have extreme faith in God's ability to rescue them from a thing. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were rescued from the fire, and then later in Daniel's life, he was rescued from the lions, and that deserves its own episode as well. But yeah, so like they had no reason up to this point to really believe that God was going to rescue them, but like you said, they trusted and believed anyway.
Yeah,
and they're like, you know what? Screw you, Nebuchadnezzar. You do what you want with us, but we are only going to serve our God.
Yeah.
And very much so, like application for today, when we as believers are faced with, like, I guess, pseudo persecution. We're really not persecuted in America.
We're really not. The news is lying to you.
Yeah. But like when we're faced with any kind of difficulty, like our heart should ultimately be that of those three men, is that yes, God is fully capable of rescuing us from this situation, but if he doesn't, then it's for our good and it's for his good purpose.
Right.
And that is where our faith comes in. We trust that God is a God of rescuing and a God of healing, but at the same time, we need to trust him.
Right.
With every aspect of our lives, even our life in general.
Right. And I mean, if you find yourself in a situation where it's like, I say this a lot, but like the big one that comes to mind right now, especially for a lot of guys, or a lot of, not necessarily guys specifically, but like a lot of people that they're dealing with, like the hard things they have to deal with is a broken home, a lot of issues that people have can be traced back to an absent father, an absent mother, an abusive father or mother, violent situations at home and growing up, and environments. Like, I mean, a lot of that, I would say a lot of issues people face are a result of that, and sometimes people can be like, well, why did you get, like, cause I lucked out, I'm fully aware. It's like, I grew up in a really, really great home, with good loving parents. They're still together. I still, go play golf with my dad every now and then.
Yep.
Well, go to the driving range anyway. But like, I suck at golf anyway.
So
yeah. But a lot of people don't have that, they don't have the ability, and they look at that and they, well, why did you get that? And why do I have to deal with this? And it's like, man, I don't know, but I mean, my heart goes out to people that have to deal with that, because it's not fair, but that's because we live in a broken world, and God will eventually right all of these wrongs, the wrongs that we face as a result of the sin of another human being. Like, eventually,
even the sins of the past.
Yeah. It's like something you're not involved in, but you may still have to deal with the repercussions of it anyway. It's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not, and that sucks. And if you're dealing with something like that, I'm sorry, but, but Lord is bigger, and in the grand scheme of things, this life will come and go.
Yep.
But if you trust in the Lord, your life will be forever, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and living for the Lord, when you finally come to the grips with the fact that your life isn't as big as you think it is, it's short, and 50, 60 long years, you'll be gone. Short years, you'll be gone. And then, but the big thing is, did you trust in the Lord?
Yep. Do you believe in Jesus as your Savior?
Right.
The blood of the Savior, cleansing your sin, covering you. That is just so metal to think about.
It's so metal, but it also gives you something to live for.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So anyway, thanks guys. I know that's been a really long one. We're really sorry. But I hope you listened all the way to the end.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. This has been The Bible is Metal. I'm Levi.
I am Ben, and have a good night.
Later.